I've been blessed for the past 4 months. I've been able to teach from home and spend every day with my kids. It's had its ups and downs, but regardless, I'm one lucky guy. And don't get me wrong, I want to be back at work. I want a sense of normality. And some days I definitely want the kids to be in school or daycare. And it's hard to comprehend the impact that COVID-19 has had on the outside world when I've been stuck inside. I mean, I go to the grocery store every 2 weeks or so, and it feels a little strange, but it's nothing crazy. I follow the arrows on the ground and I go about my business. I hear some stories from my wife and friends who are frontline workers, and I read enough articles to see how much of life COVID-19 has actually affected. But I've never actually witnessed firsthand how much change there actually is. Until a few days ago. I had to take my 4-year-old to a specialist for his ears. I had it all planned out. I'd drop off my little girl at my parents' house, and I'd take my kid to the specialist. We'd even go on a lunch date because I haven't had a chance to spend any time alone with them. My girl's a little bit clingy. But after dropping off my girl, we made it to the hospital where the specialist is located. We walked in, sanitized our hands, and started making our way to the office. And immediately I was stopped dead in my tracks. Security approached me and bombarded me with what seemed like hundreds of questions. I was taken aback by how abrupt it actually all happened. And upon reflecting of the situation, I get it. The security, they were just doing their job. But it still caught me off guard. So after I answered the question, I put the mask on and I re-sanitized my hands and we were cleared to go. But the point I'm trying to make is that in a very short amount of time, the world has forever changed. Yeah, we may all go back to work, kids may go back to school or daycare, and maybe even the price of gas will stay this low. Just kidding, we know that's never going to happen. But at the end of the day, we all must come to the conclusion that life will never be the same.
You know, what that makes me think about is just how much of an impact the second wave of COVID-19 would have, not just on our world, but our humanity.
I thought you were going to talk about how clingy your little girl is too.
No, it's the other way around. It's my boy who can't go without me for 20 minutes. But we now have to contemplate so many things before leaving our house. Did we wash our hands? Do we have our masks on? You know, are we following all the restrictions that have been put on us? As humans, we're made to adapt to new and changing situations, but I never thought we'd have to adapt to how we interact with our neighbors, our friends, and our families. I mean, my son goes down the street and he says hi to everybody, and now people are stepping away from him like he's got the plague or something, you know, and I understand why, but it's hard to teach him, you know, why he can't do those things anymore. Our world's just become a judgmental place with some people ready to throw you into the fire for the smallest infractions. You know, we just need to be prepared. So we're here today to guide you through what could possibly be a second wave of COVID-19. Welcome to another episode of Survive in Real Life. I'm Matt. This is Daryl. Today we offer our survival tips for dealing with understanding the right time to get back to work, how to handle people who aren't following the restrictions, and surviving the new world of COVID-19.
So our first survival tip is how to handle knowing when to go back to work. Now I'm going to reiterate, I've been blessed to have a job that I get to stay at home and support my family. The government has offered services to aid families in need, but I feel at the end of the day that sometimes it's just not enough. Then there's the other spectrum, where families have no choice but to work. Their livelihood depends on showing up every day regardless of the consequences and providing themselves for their family. So think about all the people who had no choice but to be at work. Doctors, nurses, grocery store employees, just to name a few. What must they have been feeling when the choice was never really presented to them? Okay, yes, if you absolutely need to stay at home, then do it by all means. But I commend those who put the needs of others first. Workers in healthcare are in the line of fire. They have the potential at any given time to be struck by the virus. I'm hoping for their sakes that their immune systems are strong enough to resist potentially catching the virus. Nevertheless, they are selfless people who put their lives on the line to help others.
So what does that mean for the rest of us at work? What does that mean for those who now have the option to go back? I have the option to go back. We have to decide what's more important, our economic situation or the potential to catch the virus and continue its spread. Numbers don't lie. The amount of people who've been infected by the virus in the last month has drastically decreased, at least here in Canada. And it's a hard situation to think through. Those who've been locked up in our homes for the past 4 months are aching for some social interaction, a sense of normality, a return to life. Now we have mostly been given the green light to go back to work, and we all have big decisions to make.
So we believe it's important to weigh all options prior to your return. Does someone in your immediate family have an illness or disease that could be greatly impacted if the virus is caught? Do you have little ones at home and you're afraid that they may catch the virus? Can you financially afford to stay at home? Or is your anxiety about returning and being around people, germs, bacteria so great that it might not even be worth the risk of going back?
These are some of the questions that you need to ask yourself before you make a return. For some, the positives outweigh the negatives, but for many out there, potentially catching the virus would just be too catastrophic for their health or those around them.
Which brings us to our second survival tip: how to handle the people who actually aren't following the restrictions. So if you haven't seen it yet, it's worth going to Google and checking out plague doctor masks. It's a long beaked apparatus that covers the whole head that citizens in Europe wore during the Black Plague to protect against diseases. So I bring this up because that's the extent some people are going through to protect themselves from COVID-19 in 2020. The world has forever changed, and let's be real. I'm sure if you've been out in public in the last 2 months or so, you may have seen some crazy things or two happening.
Yeah, I mean, there are many people who are wearing gloves, masks, and taking other forms of protection, while some people are acting as though nothing's even changed. And then there are those who are completely devoid of any concept of how to follow restrictions and purposely break the rules or make others uncomfortable. Listen, it's not an infringement on your human rights to be asked to wear a mask. I'm going to come out and say it. I don't spit in your food at a restaurant. Don't sneeze in my face in the grocery store. Wear a mask. It's simple. The government and scientists have given the easiest steps to follow. Wash your hands, avoid touching your face, stay a couple of meters apart from people, and wear a mask and gloves if you're inclined to do so. But you really should. It shouldn't be a choice. You should just wear these things to protect everybody, yourself included.
Absolutely. Now, you don't have to like what other people are doing, especially if that means they're breaking the rules. You need to prioritize yourself and the people you care about that you will be around, your family, your friends, your loved ones. So if you go to the mall and you see people not wearing gloves or masks, just know that it's their decision. Our advice is to do what's best for you.
There are people who need to see it to believe it, unfortunately, as if the news isn't enough, which means they may be in situations where they're at work or their family works and they've had no issues yet with COVID-19. I personally don't have any issues with COVID-19, but I have common sense. Not everybody has that. Almost to a point where they start believing that it's a rumor or that they're in an age bracket where they think they aren't likely to catch it. So they start risking themselves and those around them. Think about the bar or party scenes in Texas, Florida, and California. Many people between the ages of 19 and 29 were partying once the bar scene reopened, which led to a dramatic increase in COVID infections. Texas reported the highest one-day total infection since the pandemic started, 2,504 coronavirus cases, and a 4.7% jump in hospitalizations to 2,153. Florida reported 8,500, the most of any 7-day period, and California's hospitalizations have risen every day since they reopened.
It's kind of hard not to think about when you're 19 years old in the bar scene. I'm pretty sure we both thought we were invincible too.
Yeah, and there's no social distance happening in the clubs. I mean, I had a lot of social distance, not necessarily because I wanted it.
I mean, if they saw our dance moves, I'm pretty sure everybody would social distance from us. But I digress. By maintaining the government's restrictions and following what the scientists and doctors have recommended, which is to social distance or maintain a small circle of friends or family members, wash your hands daily, wear gloves and masks, and the likelihood is that you'll be fine. Which brings us to our third and last point: how to handle a changing world. So we said it before that as humans, we're able to adapt to changing situations in our lives. But not everybody has that option to do so. One of my good friends is he's blind, let's put it strictly like that. And he has this routine every day where he walks the same path, he takes the same bus, he gets groceries on the same day because he has certain people helping him. Now with COVID-19, he's no longer allowed to take the bus, and he lives like a pretty good distance from the grocery store. I can say at least a half hour. And when he's in the grocery store, he's getting looks, and he'll never know it, right? He can't see, but he's getting looks because he's infringing on people's spaces. without even knowing it. Because like I said, he knows the grocery store layout by heart. He knows everywhere he goes by heart. He's able to control his path basically with his dog's help. But now that he's not allowed to access these things, like his life has drastically changed. And he doesn't know what it's like to stay 2 meters apart. So there are people like him in the world that are suffering the consequences, and really they have no choice.
You know, the reality is it's hard to change people's mentality of how they interact with others. I mean, you meet someone new and your first learned instinct is to shake their hand. And now, what's the proper etiquette? To be honest, I don't think there is one. You know, we have to come to grips with the fact that the world is a forever changed place. That doesn't necessarily mean for the worst, it just means we have to be more aware of how we can affect others. You know, it's also important in the case of your friend that we recognize that we also have to adapt how we're navigating this new reality today. You know, yes, we want to keep that distance apart, but some people can't. There are accessibility issues in the world that we have to be aware of too. It's going to be about adapting. It's hard not to see the world through a glass half empty perspective. The world's drastically changed in the past 4 months with little end in sight. We're no longer able to cross borders between countries. Going overseas on vacations become limited. We can't have public meetings. Sports are all but canceled, and our mentality towards others has had a complete overhaul.
I mean, sports is kind of making a comeback, but I mean, who wants to watch MLB, NBA, NHL without any fans in the crowd? As an athlete, like, you thrive off the people cheering you on, or in the opposite, booing you, right? So how do you think these athletes are going to fare? I don't know. That's a tough situation. And plus, they're putting a bubble up in Toronto, Edmonton for NHL, and then the NBA, they're in Florida. So they're forced to stay in this bubble. I mean, not forced, really, it's their choice. But I mean, they're adapted too, right? Like, their whole life has changed. They're not around their family anymore. They can't leave this bubble. They can't bring anybody in. So I get it. It's their job. It's their business. It's their livelihood. But they have to adapt. And all the money in the world couldn't make that easier. No. But we're not here to give you the glass half empty point of view. We're here to help you survive and navigate the new world. As our government implements new phases of being able to normalize ourselves, the ultimate plan doesn't change. We need to protect ourselves, our loved ones, and those around us. We may not like the decisions to wear a mask. We may not think about scrubbing our hands clean 24/7. And we don't always have a measuring tape to know exactly how far apart we are from each other. Sorry to all the Karens of the world. What we do have is a sense of responsibility that is crucial in eliminating the threat of this virus. And we owe it to ourselves to be strong and commit to that responsibility. And what would survive in real life be without our bonus tip? Don't take life for granted. The virus seems to not always pick and choose its victims based on age and medical factors, but it can hit anybody at any time. So follow the restrictions. Don't worry about other people. Worry about you and your family. Although there are many people out there who choose not to follow the restrictions, it's up to us to do our best for our families, our friends, and our nation. Not everyone out there is going to be a Karen, but we need to focus on those who are doing their jobs. So to recap all our points today, I think one of the hardest things to accept about the whole situation is that it's not ended. Not anytime soon anyhow. And if you're anything like me, you need to see the light at the end of the tunnel. To know that there is an actual end in sight. I need to hit the gym. I need to play basketball. I need my kids to get out of my hair. Get it? And we can't promise you that there is, but we can guide you through some of the more difficult situations that many of us have to face.
When is it safe to go back to work? Make sure you're comfortable with the risks. If there are people in your immediate circle who have the potential to be affected by COVID, maybe that's something that you should think long and hard about. But otherwise, weigh your options, your mental health, financial security, and the potential for risks that should all play a factor in your decision.
Secondly, we can't always ignore the people around us, but we can definitely avoid people who refuse to follow the rules. Why put yourself at risk just because other people choose not to do it?
And lastly, the virus has affected all of us in some form or another. Our world may be forever changed by new regulations and restrictions. Only time will tell if we ever return to pre-COVID conditions. So thank you for taking the time to watch and listen to Survive in Real Life. We offer these tips as suggestions based on what we've experienced in our lives and what's helped for us. We would love to hear your tips as well. Leave us some comments about how you would survive a potential second wave of COVID-19. If you liked our survival tips, please like, share, and subscribe to our page. and come back for more weekly episodes of Surviving Real Life.